Story 1. To let sleeping dogs lie. If a person shows you they are not interested in the relationship or friendship, believe them. It will never change. Story 2. How to set boundaries early and not waver on those boundaries. My sister always says it best. You're not entitled to ask, and I'm not obligated to answer. Story 3. Your parents are not necessarily looking out for your best interests. Sometimes they are actively making your entire life more difficult. It seems stupid it took me over 30 years to figure it out. Story 4. You don't have to remove the plastic top of your new deodorant with your teeth or pliers or anything. You can just turn the base until it comes up enough to take it off. Story 5. That my excessive procrastination and inability to stick to long-term goals, no matter how hard I tried, wasn't because of laziness. It's an actual medical condition, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I started medication after I turned 40 and am now slowly seeing results. Sometimes I feel bad because everything I've achieved has always been after a lot of struggle. Story 6. My dad was fond of framing questions to my brother or me regarding just what on earth we were doing, up to age 10 or so, when it no longer seemed necessary, using the term pray tell, as in what are you doing with the tools, pray tell? I presumed a prattle was a gentle equivalent to goofball or dummy. One day, I corrected my brother about some misconception he had, addressing him as, "You prattle. What did you call him?" asked Dad, who happened to be nearby. "A prattle. You call us that all the time." "Ido." "Yeah, you say, what is that supposed to be, prattle?" I'd never seen him laugh through a facepalm before. Story 7. People do not focus on me nearly as much as I thought. 40 years feeling self-conscious about almost everything turned out to be a waste of energy and emotion. Most people are totally cool with all the stuff I was sure people hated about me and my personality. Turns out, once I relaxed and just accepted myself and lived life, people were drawn to me. Took me 4 decades of life to figure that one out. Story 8. That my parents were narcissists. I knew they weren't the best parents. But the second I gave birth and my son was placed in my arms, something suddenly clicked. I was 27 years old, and everything they had ever done and said to me flashed through my head. I looked at my sweet, innocent baby, and I realized just how bad they were to me, especially my mother. I realized that I hate her. I'm 37 now. I'm sad it took me that long to realize. I let so much disrespect and abuse slide. I tolerated it because they are your parents. You don't got it. The one and only thing I learned from them as parents was exactly what I didn't want to be. So, thank you for that. Because of this, my son has and will always be treated with love, patience, kindness, respect, and understanding. He has and will always have the childhood I didn't, the mother I deserved and didn't. Story 9. Never take your loved ones for granted because they can be taken away from you in the blink of an eye. I lost my husband during a hiking trip we took together to spend time together after having a rocky period. It was like our first date. We flirted, we laughed, we talked. We had an amazing day until my whole life changed forever in the blink of an eye. I wish I had never gotten into arguments or fights with him. I am thankful we had that day of happiness and not fighting, but still, I regret ever fighting with him. We were together for 8 years. He was my soulmate. Story 10. It is okay to talk about a lot of things people say you should be ashamed of. Last time my card declined, I said, "Oh no, maybe I'm broke." Last time someone mentioned that my house looked messy in the background of a photo, I just said, "Yeah, I struggle with that. I'm working on it." You do not have to be ashamed just because people say you do. Story 11. If you help somebody at work, your job description expands to make that assistance a permanent part of your job. All employees are disposable expenses, and if the overhead is too high, experience and ability do not matter. If it is not documented, it did not happen. Story 12. How to emotionally regulate. Still working on it, especially with the most recent election cycle, as I feel we are constantly surrounded by emotional dysregulation, and people like that can't be reasoned with. In turn, I have to work on not reacting emotionally and disconnect from it all. Story 13. I did not realize until much later in life how powerful dreams can be as messages from our subconscious or even beyond. I wish I had paid more attention to their symbolism earlier. Story 14. Some people will grieve their relationship with you while they're still with you, which leaves you unsuspecting when they're finally ready to call it. Find closure in the fact that they were able to not only end things with you but also string you along for their benefit until it suited them at your expense. Story 15. Throwing money at people because you have it doesn't make them love you. It makes them question your tactics and what they can get without you realizing you're being used. From witnessing someone else flaunt their cash for love because she thinks life ends at 20. Story 16. That actions speak louder than words. If someone keeps telling you they will change and be better but keeps making the same mistakes and hurting you, believe their actions. Do not stay around them if their words do not match the mind they use to make decisions. Story 17. How quickly time passes. Reflect on the last year, over in the blink of an eye. I wish I had been more attentive to how I spent my time, with whom, and to learn how not to live in survival mode every day. Story 18. People take you at face value if you present yourself as competent and speak with confidence. You will get farther than being humble and actually knowing what you are doing. The old saying, fake it till you make it, is true. Story 19. Any seeds you planted in the past, either good or bad, will begin to bear fruit and affect the quality of your life as you get older, for better or worse. Story 20. Not everyone who is kind to you is your friend. I grew up in a town of 3,000 people and abruptly moved to a city of over 1 million. I was naive and I'm grateful to be alive. Story 21. When working in any kind of office setting, 20% of your job is actually doing your work and 80% is dealing with the incompetence of those around you and who you work with. Does anyone want to correct me and tell me it is the same in non-office settings? I am hopeful it is not the case but willing to learn. Story 22. If a friend, family member, or colleague asks your opinion on something or for help, tell them once. It's not your responsibility to make them listen, and it's up to them when they're ready to listen. Don't feel sympathy when things don't go their way or when they didn't listen to you. Let them learn and grow from it. When they want to, they'll come back. If they don't, they live with their choice, and you can rest assured you did everything you needed to. Everything you could do wouldn't have mattered. Story 23. That even employers at small close-knit companies will always do what makes them money. You're not like family. You're disposable. They're prioritizing money and what makes their own lives better. You should too. Take the sick day. Stop working off the clock. Stop acting like if you miss a day, they'll fire you. They'll fire you anyway if it makes them $1. Story 24. The idea of it's not that important. Whatever it is, most of what confounds and bothers people does not really matter in the least. Stop obsessing over the small stuff. Learn to care about only what is important. Story 25. That it's okay to say no and establish boundaries with family and friends. Had I learned this sooner, I would not have gotten pressured into a toxic online relationship with a manipulative control freak who convinced me to do a ton of things I regret, including a thankfully failed attempt to run away from my family to go live with her several states away. Story 26. You need to look after yourself mentally and physically. Just because you have been powering through everything so far does not mean you will always do so. Story 27. Most friends aren't nearly as ride or die as they will claim to be. That's okay. Just let them go. It's the natural state of things for people to come and go in and out of your life. Story 28. I am 42 years old, and although there are quite a few things I wish I had learned sooner or caught on to sooner, I don't believe it's too late for anything. I also feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Story 29. Study habits. I was flying through all of elementary and most of high school with basically the bare minimum of effort. Studying for tests was something I barely ever did, since I would be able to score high 90s in those tests without it anyway. However, when late high school and university started, I was left in the dust by all my other friends who, despite being less academically inclined than me, had formed good study and homework habits as a result of actually needing them in the early parts of school. Thankfully, I was able to somewhat catch up to them by really working hard, but the damage had already been done, and many of my early semester marks from that period were much lower than they could have been. Story 30. I do not think anything is learned too late. We learn from experience, and we cannot learn anything until we are ready to learn it. Do not look back and say, if only I had known or understood something. You were not ready to know it. Story 31. Compound interest. The younger you start saving, the more options life will have as you get older. Invest as much as you can live without as soon as you start your first job. Open a Roth individual retirement account with Vanguard, Fidelity, or even Acorns. You can start small and gradually add more as your income grows over time. If you put only $100 a month starting at 18 years old, with a 7% annual return, you would have $422,000 at 65 years. Use a calculator to adjust your contributions to see what it takes to retire a millionaire. Story 32. People can do awful things, harm and hurt others, and still be revered, loved, and cared for, and live their best life without an ounce of remorse or guilt. Story 33. That there's not always time, and a procrastinated day hanging out with a loved one will inevitably become the shell of a memory that could have been. Days gone are real. Let's cherish every moment with those we love. Starting right now. Story 34. The single most important factor to success is persistence. A stubborn kind of persistence that often goes beyond what conventional wisdom would deem rational. Story 35. It's never completely too late, but trust your instincts. Don't judge or meddle in other people's relationships unless you are actively preventing abuse by doing so. Most people don't really know what they are doing. Noam Chomsky is typically right. Story 36. Be aggressively good. Discard anyone who doesn't meet your standards for goodness. Be very open to everyone once, but watch what they say and do closely. Some people are openly unkind. Some hide it. Some don't know they are unkind. Identify and reject. Good but smart is the game. Soon, unkind people who come across you will go away on their own. When they don't, you go away. Don't think you can be a smarter, unkind person while sticking with them. Good people will find you when you are like this. Story 37. A woman may not be attracted to a man initially, but the man can make the woman like him later by giving her the right amount of attention. Not too much, not too little, just the right amount. Courting a woman is underrated and should not be confused with excessive displays of affection. Of course, basic hygiene, confidence, overall appearance, and the ability to provide for a normal lifestyle with children are essential. No extremes, though. Interestingly, a woman can have negative qualities, but as long as she is rated an 8 or 9 out of 10 in attractiveness, some men overlook it. A decent woman does not care about men's external attributes as much. Story 38. When some people form a bad opinion about you, they never forget and never let go. It doesn't matter if it was true, false, or a rumor. Some people just seem to be hardwired. Once a belief has been established, that's it. Story 39. Your skill that you studied years for and got into college debt for? Yeah, that is still not a guarantee that you will have quality of life. If the market becomes flooded or if some disruptive technology comes along, you can still end up working for poor pay at a warehouse, retail, or food service job. Story 40. Put yourself first because nobody else will. I grew up in a toxic family, and it led me to shut down and put others before myself for years. I worked on myself and moved out, was doing amazing in college, then got sick, moved home, and got treated like crap by family, doctors, and people. Now I'm disabled because I look too much to others who all pretty much just hurt me and burnt me out. I'm sure if I had gotten sick a little later in life as opposed to at 20, I would have built up my self-reliance a bit more. But I had only moved out 6 months prior to getting sick and was still working on healing myself from the traumatic childhood. Story 41. Having goals and passions allows you to stay focused and positive rather than getting caught up in negative experiences and emotions. Most people use the phrase, give no cares, in an angry way that results in spiteful and self-sabotaging behaviors. The actual give no cares attitude is blissfully unaware of negativity because you are focused on personal endeavors and achievements. Story 42. Companies care about that little piece of paper called a degree. It does not guarantee you a job, but trying to find one without it is nearly impossible. Not having it is a disadvantage. Also, you can get loans to pay for college. Nobody ever explained that in high school, despite my visits to the guidance office specifically to learn about college early. Also, you need a major to get a degree. Simply taking random classes that sound fun might be a good experience, but it is a waste of money. Story 43. It was hidden from me that I have autism until I was an adult. I went through childhood and puberty being vaguely confused all the time. I'm still confused all the time, but at least I know why. Story 44. Feeling internally valued. I don't know if this is something that affects everyone or not. I know my self-worth was poor from age 6 to around 30. I've made tremendous strides to believe in myself, and I am not where I want to be yet, but I am not done learning. Story 45. I probably have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it's ruined my ability to socialize, maintain friendships, clean my home, care for my pets, and care for myself. Looking into getting tested. Story 46. Health is wealth. Ignoring small health issues or bad habits like a poor diet or lack of exercise catches up with you. By the time I realized this, it took a lot more effort to get back on track. Story 47. The importance and power of investing early in life. Some people will just scroll through and read those words and be dismissive, but if there was one thing I wish I appreciated much earlier in life, it is that